I think most of you know me. My name is Mike Isenberg. I'm sure you'll all be very relieved to know that I did not come here to pitch my Liberty novel, Full Asylum, because I think you've
which can be found where?
all heard, which can be found on Amazon, but you've all heard that pitch so many times I think you can recite it better than I can. The reason I came here, because we're in the middle of a presidential election and I was out of bourbon at home, and they had some here and better company to drink with. And Patrick said, as long as I'm here, I should tell you why I'm voting for Gary Johnson, just to tell you what my credentials are. To talk about this, I'm an elector for Gary Johnson. So if he wins the state of Massachusetts, I will be in the Electoral College. So quite literally, a vote for Johnson is a vote for me, so please vote for Johnson. I am not officially part of the campaign. The campaign asked me to make sure you all knew that I'm only here to speak for myself. And the reason that I'm voting for Governor Johnson is because I'm a Tea Partier. And let me just remind you what that means. If you think back to 2009 when we started this movement and we were out on the Boston Common with our Gadsden flags and our hand-painted signs, and it was all very exciting. Everyone was against us. They called us racist. The Speaker of the House down in Washington called us AstroTurf. But we felt that we were doing something right, and that it was important to do, and that we were going to make a difference. And if you look at the 2010 election results, we did make a difference. And we were out there because of 4 issues. The first one was the porculus bill. The Obama administration had just signed a bill to take $1 trillion out of our pockets and give it to their friends, to the unions, to green energy companies that could never survive in a free market, and as it turned out, didn't survive in a subsidized market either. And we were angry about our children's future being mortgaged for this big spending. Second reason we were out there was taxes. That's what gave the movement its name, TEA, Taxed Enough Already. Third reason we were out there was corporate welfare, because there is another big bill that had just been signed a few months earlier by President Bush, which was TARP, to take $1 trillion out of our pockets and give it to bankers and hedge fund managers and other people who didn't have the sense to make good investments. And the fourth reason we were out there was the Constitution. We felt that it no longer got the respect, it was no longer respected in Washington. This wonderful document that was our legacy from George Washington and James Madison, people like that, handed down to us, and which has preserved our liberties for 200 years. That's why we started this movement: spending, taxes, corporate welfare, the Constitution. In my humble opinion, Governor Johnson is the candidate out there who most consistently follows the Tea Party positions on those 4 issues. On spending, he promises that he'll submit a balanced budget, not his 8th year in office, but his 1st year in office. And he said how he'll get there, by closing departments, commerce, HUD, education. He questions why, if we have an FBI, we need a Department of Homeland Security too. He wants to listen to the military. The military's saying they want to close bases another 25% beyond what they've already closed. Congress is the one that's standing in the way of that. Governor Johnson wants to change that. And he's also willing to take on an issue which I think really needs to be taken on, but few politicians have the courage to do it, and that's entitlements, Social Security and Medicare. We are headed to a fiscal cliff on entitlements. The Social Security paid out $100 billion more in benefits last year than they took in payroll taxes. That is not sustainable. Governor Johnson wants to take on this issue. He wants to look at the kind of things that I believe it was called the Simpson-Bowles Commission recommended, you know, to raise retirement ages, have some common sense means tests, and so on. Taxes. Governor Johnson wants to wants to do the same thing that Cruz wanted to do. Get rid of the personal income tax, get rid of the corporate income tax, replace those with a national consumption tax. There are huge benefits to doing that. One of them is that you get rid of the IRS as we know it. We don't like that. Second, we've heard a lot in the news about corporations moving their headquarters overseas. Hillary Clinton hears that, her reaction is punish the corporations. Governor Johnson, and to his credit, Mr. Trump, look at that and say, well, let's fix the thing that's driving them overseas to begin with, which is the corporate income tax. Mr. Trump wants to lower it from 35% to 15%. Governor Johnson wants to take it to 0 and replace it. Other benefits of doing that is, which feeds right into the next issue, corporate welfare. Half the lobbyists in, most of the lobbyists in Washington are there to get loopholes in the tax code on behalf of the interests that they represent. You know, if you get rid of these taxes with all their complications, it will rain pink slips on K Street. And finally, the Constitution. What I can say is Governor Johnson gets it when it comes to the Constitution. He gets separation of powers. Whenever he makes all these promises, he makes sure to point out, by the way, as president, all he can really do is sign the bill. That's the only power he really has under the Constitution, that he's going to have to work with Congress to get the bill to his desk in the first place. He gets federalism on issue after issue. Governor Johnson says, under our Constitution, this issue should be decided by the states and not the federal government. One is education, that I already mentioned. A second, which might surprise you, is marijuana, because I think we all associate legalizing marijuana with Governor Johnson. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is at the federal level, legalize it, take it out of the index of forbidden drug. Well, it's not really called that. It's called the Schedule I of controlled substances. And then it'd be up to the states whether it should be legal in that state, as it should be under our Constitution. So he gets federalism. Now, all of this sounds very good. And if you're anything like me, or like any of us in the Tea Party, where we've been burned so many times in the past, you know, somebody sounded good and got to Washington and did something completely different. So you got to ask the question, does he mean it? I think Governor Johnson means it for two reasons. The first one is his track record. He was governor of New Mexico for 8 years, and there are dueling statistics out on the web of what his record was on spending. I looked up the raw numbers. It was a very good record. Balanced budgets, surpluses 5 out of 8 years, with a net surplus of about $3 billion for his period as governor. Taxes, he never signed a tax increase. He vetoed 14 tax increases. He vetoed 750 bills total. So he definitely, his track record supports the kind of things that he's talking about. He went to the mat with the state legislature trying to get a voucher system in New Mexico. He ultimately was unsuccessful, but he took it right to the edge of a government shutdown. The other reason I believe he believes what he's saying is because he gets the underlying philosophy that's behind all of these issues, which is freedom. You know, this philosophy that we should be able to do anything we want, provided we don't harm other people. You know, you've probably seen that meme on Facebook where it says, I want for same-sex married couples to protect their marijuana plants with assault weapons and homeschool their children. And I think that, you know, kind of sums up that sort of freedom philosophy. So I have some literature here. I'll pass this around. It's got the website on it. You can find out more about the Johnson campaign. And I want to sum up by, or wrap up by addressing some of the criticisms that you've heard about Gary Johnson. And if you're on social media at all, you've heard a lot. He's not a libertarian. He's not a real libertarian. I've looked into these. They are almost entirely without merit. I don't have time to go into them in the main part of the talk, but if you want to ask me about them in the question period, I can go into more detail. I will, however, address just one of them now, which is this notion that you're wasting your vote if you vote for Governor Johnson. You're wasting your vote if you vote for a third party. You're putting Hillary in the White House. There are a lot of ways I could answer it. I could dismiss it with a joke. I could say, well, you vote for Johnson, it's great, because then you can vote against Hillary and Trump. Or I could, you know, go into arguments about why in this crazy year he could actually win. There is a path to victory. It's a long shot. I'm not crazy, but it's non-zero. I could talk about why he really isn't turning the election over to Hillary. And I could give you statistics for an hour to back up everything I'm saying here. Okay. But when it comes down to it, my mind is just not that convoluted. I don't go in for game theory. I'm voting for Gary Johnson because I want Gary Johnson to be president. And I hope that as you learn more about it, some of you will too, because if you're voting for the guy you want, it's never a wasted vote. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.